welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really zooming in on what makes digital stuff not just work, but actually look and feel good to use.
Yeah, the visual side of things.
Exactly. We've already covered the basics in our deep dive on foundations of UI, UX, CX, and then the whole process in the UX design process.
Right, setting the stage.
So now, it's time to focus on making it all visually coherent, intuitive, the actual interface design.ui.
And for that, we're diving into the third book in this series, UI Design Principles.
Perfect.
Our mission today is basically to pull out the key ideas, the really practical stuff from the book, to help you understand, how to make interfaces that work well and look great.
Okay, sounds good. So chapter 1 of the book starts with the real building blocks.
Yeah.
Layout, spacing, typography, and color. Kind of the fundamentals.
Absolutely. Think of layout as like the floor plan for your screen. It's how you arrange everything, buttons, text, images.
It's not just random placement then.
Oh, definitely not. Good layout guides the user's eye, creates order, makes things easier to read and understand. You want it to feel intentional.
The book mentions grids. Are these things users actually see?
Usually no. They're more like invisible guidelines. Think of them as a hidden structure that helps you line everything up consistently.
So they bring balance.
Yeah, balanced professionalism. Even if you can't pinpoint the grid, you can often feel when it's there or when it's missing.
Okay. And then alignment, just lining things up left, right, center. Seems basic.
It seems basic, but consistency is like super important. Sticking to one alignment, say, left aligning most text, creates a really clean, scannable look.
And mixing them up without a good reason is bad.
Yeah, it can look messy, sort of unprofessional. Unless you're doing it very deliberately for emphasis, consistency is generally your friend.
Got it. And the last layout concept is proximity, putting related things close together.
Exactly. It's visual common sense, really. You put a label right next to the input box it belongs to.
So you instantly know they're connected.
Precisely. It's a visual shortcut for understanding relationships on the page.
Okay, that covers layout. Now spacing, or white space, the book calls it the art of nothing, which I like. It's not just empty filler, right?
Not at all. Spacing is an active design tool. It's the breathing room around and between all your elements.
So it stops things feeling cluttered.
Definitely. It prevents that overwhelming feeling, improves readability by separating text, helps group related items visually, and it can even make a design feel more elegant, more focused.
So you need to be intentional about it.
Totally. Consistent margins, padding, you use space deliberately. More space can suggest things are separate or maybe more important. Less space implies a close relationship.
And the book suggests being generous with it.
Often, yes. A little extra white space can make an interface feel much calmer and easier to process. Don't be afraid of emptiness.
Makes sense. Okay, moving on to typography. The book calls it the voice of your words. So much more than just picking fonts.
Oh, absolutely. Typography is the whole art and technique of arranging text, so it's legible, readable, and visually appealing. Text is still how we communicate so much information online.
Right.
So how your text looks massively impacts how users take in that information, and even the overall tone or personality of the interface.
Okay, so what are the key things the book covers? Font choice first, I guess. Sans serif versus serif.
Yeah, that's a classic one. Generally, sans serif fonts, the ones without the little feet, are preferred for digital screens because they tend to look cleaner.
And serifs are more for print.
Traditionally, yeah. The book also really emphasizes limiting the number of fonts you use. Often just one or two well-chosen ones are enough.
Keep it simple. And then size and weight,
Yeah.
bold, regular, light. That's about hierarchy.
Exactly. You use different sizes and weights to show what's important. Headings are bigger and bolder than body text, obviously. It helps users scan and understand the structure quickly.
Okay, and line height, or leading, that vertical space between lines.
Super important for readability, even if people don't consciously notice it. Too tight, and it's hard to read. Too loose, and lines feel disconnected.
What does the book suggest?
Around 1.4 to 1.6 times the font size is often a good starting point. Gives the text room to breathe.
And finally, contrast in typography. Text versus background.
Absolutely critical. You need enough contrast so people can actually read the text easily. This is huge for accessibility too, which we'll get to later.
Okay, last building block in this chapter. Color. Communicating with hues. Color's powerful.
Immensely powerful. It evokes emotion, grabs attention, signals, meaning like red for errors, green for success, and just makes things visually interesting.
And branding, of course.
Huge for branding, yeah. And guiding attention, like making call to action buttons stand out.
The book mentions color psychology basics, like blue means trust.
It touches on it. It's not an exact science, but yeah, certain colors have common associations. Blue often feels trustworthy, red urgent or warning. It's worth thinking about the kind of emotional vibe your colors give off.
And creating a palette. The 60-30-10 rule comes up.
Right, that's a really useful guideline. Basically, 60% of your design uses a main dominant color. 30% uses a secondary supporting color.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 10% is an accent color, used sparingly for highlights, calls to action, that kind of thing, helps create balance.
And contrast again, but for color itself.
hmm
Crucial for accessibility.
Absolutely vital.
Mhm.
Not just text on background, but making sure interactive elements stand out from their surroundings. The book really hammers home the need to check against WCAG guidelines using contrast checker tools.
So people with visual impairments aren't left out.
Exactly. And using color consistently, like maybe all error messages use the same red, helps users learn the interface's language quickly.
It really sounds like these four: layout, spacing, typography, color, all have to work together.
They absolutely do. Good spacing makes your typography readable. Color reinforces the hierarchy you set up with layout. A solid layout makes your color choices feel purposeful. Mastering these really is the foundation.
Okay, so once you have those fundamentals, Chapter 2 talks about building consistently, using these ingredients efficiently, especially on bigger projects.
Yeah, this is where UI components and design systems come in. Super important stuff.
Components are like Lego bricks, the book says.
That's a perfect analogy. They're reusable, self-contained pieces of the interface that solve a specific need. Think buttons, primary, secondary, disabled versions.
Input fields.
Yep. Text inputs, password fields, drop-downs, checkboxes, radio buttons. Also things like cards, nav bars, icons, modals, all those standard bits.
So you design them once and reuse them.
Exactly. And crucially, these components already have the typography, color, and spacing baked in, according to the rules you set in Chapter 1. It makes everything faster and way more consistent.
And then design systems are like the whole Lego set, with instructions.
Spot on. A design system is much bigger than just the components. It's the central hub with all the reusable components, plus the standards, the guiding principles, the tools, everything a team needs to design and build consistently and efficiently.
It's more than just a style guide then.
Oh yeah, much more. It's a living, evolving resource for both designers and developers, the single source of truth for the UI.
And the benefits seem huge. Consistency, efficiency.
Huge. Consistency across products strengthens the brand and makes things predictable for users. Efficiency, because you're not constantly reinventing the wheel. Collaboration is smoother because everyone's using the same language and building blocks.
And it helps with scaling.
Definitely. Managing design for large products or growing teams becomes much more manageable. Plus, components in a good system are usually tested for usability and accessibility, so quality improves too.
What are the typical pieces of a design system?
Well, the component library is key. Then the style guide detailing colors, typography, spacing, icons. Often design principles, the sort of high-level philosophy, maybe content guidelines for voice and tone, examples of how to combine components, code snippets for developers, and lots of documentation.
It sounds complex. Why should beginners care about this?
Well, even on your own projects, thinking in terms of reusable components is just good practice. Makes you more efficient, keeps things coherent.
And it's standard in the industry now.
Pretty much, yeah. If you want to work professionally, you need to understand design systems. Plus, the book points out that looking at public systems like Google's material design or Apple's human interface guidelines is an amazing way to learn.
So you can see how the pros do it.
Exactly. See best practices in action.
So components and systems help you be systematic, consistent, efficient, and scalable. Makes total sense. Okay, Chapter 3 gets into core interactions. Buttons, forms, navigation, the things users actually do.
Yeah, the absolute workhorses. Buttons for actions, forms for input, navigation for getting around. If these aren't right, the whole experience suffers.
Let's start with buttons. Clarity seems key for labels.
Absolutely. Use clear, action-oriented verbs. Save changes, not just submit. Tell the user exactly what will happen when they click.
And visual hierarchy matters too.
Yeah.
Primary versus secondary actions.
Definitely. Your main action should stand out. Often a solid fill for primary, maybe an outline for secondary, and just text for tertiary, like cancel. These visual cues guide the user.
Size and placement are important too, right? Especially on mobile.
Crucial. Big enough to tap, easily fits law in action, place where users expect them, like bottom right on forms, and enough space around them so you don't accidentally tap the wrong thing.
And buttons need different states,
Hmm.
like hover, pressed.
Yes. Feedback is vital. Default state, hover state on desktop. Press a disabled state, and ideally tell a user why it's disabled. Maybe even a loading state with a spinner. Lets the user know the system is responding.
Okay, on to forms. Gathering information can be frustrating if done badly.
Oh, incredibly frustrating. The golden rule. Keep it simple.
Oh.
Only ask for what you absolutely need. Every extra field is friction.
Break up long forms.
Yeah, into logical sections or steps. Maybe add a progress bar so users know where they are. Nobody likes a never-ending form.
And clearest labels again.
Essential. Visible labels, usually placed right above the field. Use helper text underneath for extra instructions if needed, but don't rely only on placeholder text inside the field that disappears when you type.
What about layout for forms?
Single column is usually best. Easier to scan down. Order the fields logically: name, email, address, etc. Group related fields together like billing details.
And using smart input types.
Yeah.
Like number pads for phone numbers.
Yeah, it makes data entry way easier. Date pickers, too. And provide validation feedback right away, ideally next to the field. Show errors clearly, maybe even success indicators.
And good error messages are important.
Critical. Highlight the field with the error. Use plain language to explain exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. No generic error occurred.
Right. Okay. Last core interaction. Navigation. Finding your way around.
Helping users understand where they are and where they can go. Clarity and consistency are paramount here, too.
Familiar labels.
Yes. Use terms users understand. Don't get too clever. And keep the main navigation in the same place and looking the same on every screen. Predictability builds confidence.
And make sure it's visible. Avoid hiding everything behind hamburger menus on desktop.
Generally, yeah. If there's space, keep primary navigation visible. Out of sight, out of mind often applies. Users are less likely to explore what they can't see.
And show users where they currently are.
Definitely. Use visual cues like highlighting the current section in the menu, using breadcrumbs to show the path, or just having clear page titles. Reduces confusion.
And the structure needs to be logical, based on information architecture.
Absolutely. The navigation should reflect a well-thought-out organization of the content. Group-related things. Limit the number of main options the book suggests, 5-7 as a guideline.
And navigation needs to adapt for mobile.
For sure. Mobile uses different patterns, bottom nav bars, tabs, slide-out menus. You choose based on the content and what users need to do most often on a smaller screen.
So for all these core interactions, buttons, forms, navigation, it really comes down to clarity, consistency, and feedback.
Pretty much. Get those right, and you're building an intuitive, efficient UI, which leads nicely into Chapter 4.
Designing for everyone. Accessibility or A11Y.
Yeah, ensuring designs are usable by people of all abilities. Visual, auditory, motor, cognitive impairments. But the great thing is, accessible design usually makes things better for everyone.
Like people with temporary injuries, or just in a noisy environment.
Exactly. Or someone using a screen in bright sunlight. Accessibility benefits are widespread.
Why is it so important? The book lists a few reasons.
Well, first, it's just the right thing to do. Inclusivity, equal access. Second, it's a huge audience. Estimates suggest 15–20% of people have some disability. Third, like we said, it often just leads to better UX overall: clear contrast, logical structure, predictability.
Legal reasons, too.
Often, yes. WCAG guidelines are legal requirements in many places. And finally, it's good for your brand image. Shows you care.
Okay, what are the key areas of UI accessibility the book covers? Visual first.
Right. Color contrast is huge here. We mentioned it before: ensuring text and important graphics have enough contrast against their background. Use those checker tools.
And don't rely only on color.
Crucial. Use icons, text labels, patterns, something besides color to convey meaning because of color blindness. Also, readable font sizes, good line spacing, avoid overly decorative fonts for important text.
Then interaction accessibility. Keyboard navigation.
Essential. Everything interactive, links, buttons, forms must be usable with just a keyboard. Tab, Shift plus Tab, Enter, Space. Think about users who can't use a mouse.
And visible focus states.
Yes. When you tab to an element, there needs to be a clear visual outline or highlight so you know where you are. Can't navigate by keyboard if you can't see the focus.
Screen reader compatibility is another big one for blind or low vision users.
Definitely. This means things like descriptive alt text for images that convey information, empty alt text for purely decorative ones. Using proper semantic HTML so the screen reader understands the structure: headings, lists, buttons.
Clear labels for form fields.
Yes, labels need to be programmatically linked to their fields. And ensuring a logical reading order so the screen reader presents content coherently.
And finally, understandability.
Using clear, simple language. Avoiding jargon. maintaining consistent design patterns so users don't have to relearn things constantly, and again, helpful error messages that clearly explain problems and solutions.
The book suggests some simple first steps.
Yeah, just starting with the basics helps a lot. Check your color contrast. Always add alt text to images. Use clear labels. Think about keyboard navigation and design those visible focus states. It's a great starting point.
It really frames accessibility as just good design, rooted in empathy.
Exactly. It's integral, not an add-on, and it leads to better products for absolutely everyone.
Okay, last chapter, chapter 5. The designer's toolkit, the software.
Yeah.
But the book stresses principles over tools, right?
Absolutely. Tools change all the time. The principles we've discussed are what matter. The tools just help you apply them.
So what do these tools help with? Vector graphics, layouts?
Yeah, creating scalable graphics, designing layouts, managing styles and components, linking back to Chapter 2, doing basic prototyping to test flows, real-time collaboration, and handoff to developers with all the specs they need.
The book gives an overview of popular ones: Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD. Figma is known for being browser-based and collaborative.
That's right. Works anywhere, great for teams, and has a really generous free tier, which makes it super accessible for beginners. It's hugely popular right now.
Sketch is Mac-only, clean interface, lots of plugins.
Yep, native Mac app. It was kind of the pioneer in dedicated UI tools and still has a strong following and a massive plugin ecosystem.
And Adobe XD integrates with Creative Cloud. Good prototyping.
Exactly. If you're already in the Adobe world, it fits right in. Cross-platform and strong prototyping features like auto-animate.
So how should a beginner choose?
The main message is, don't sweat it too much. Pick one and start learning the principles. Figma's free tier is a great place to start. Try trials. Maybe Figma if collaboration is key, XD if you use Adobe stuff, Sketch if you love native Mac apps.
But focus on the design, not the tool.
Precisely. You can always switch tools later. Focus on layout, spacing, typography, color components, interactions, accessibility. That's the real skill.
And there are other tools too. Whiteboards, advanced prototyping.
Yeah, the ecosystem is broad. Digital whiteboards like Miro or FigJam for brainstorming, more powerful prototyping tools for complex stuff, user research platforms, handoff tools. Designers use various things depending on the task.
But the main UI tools are the core, and they're just facilitators.
Exactly. The designer's understanding of principles determines the quality, not the software itself. Explore the tools, but master the fundamentals.
Great. So that wraps up our deep dive into UI design principles, the third book in the series. We covered layout, spacing, type, color.
Then components and design systems for consistency, core interactions like buttons and forms, the absolute necessity of accessibility.
And finally, the tools that help bring it all together.
It really builds on the first two books, Foundations of UI UX CX for the groundwork, and the UX design process for understanding users and solutions.
And just a reminder, if you want to explore all this in more detail, UI Design Principles, along with the other two books in this series, are all available on Amazon. They really provide a fantastic, comprehensive look at user-centered design.
Definitely worth checking out. So as you listen, think about how these ideas, visual hierarchy, consistency, accessibility, might change how you look at interfaces or even approach designing them yourself.
Which parts really click for you? What could you start applying right away?
Yeah, how does this change your perspective?
And here's a final thought to leave you with. As you go about your day, interacting with websites, apps, whatever, pay closer attention to the how. How are these principles of layout, spacing, color, interaction being used? What small design choices make a big difference to your experience, good or bad?